Question number 4, is the use of contraceptives and other forms of birth control scriptural? And the answer to that is it depends. It depends on how you define those terms, contraceptives and birth control. Because those terms, even though they're often used synonymously, they're really technically not synonymous terms. Contraceptive. If you study that word, you break it down, you look at the etymology of the word contraceptive, contra meaning against, conception is the idea of contraceptives, against conception. That is, it prevents conception in the womb. It prevents a woman from conceiving a child in the womb. That's contraception. So that anything that is practiced that would prevent the woman from conceiving a child in her womb would technically be what contraception is. Now, once that child is conceived, there are other ways to control birth. There are other types of birth control that can happen after the woman conceives. Abortion would be obviously one of them, but that's not contraceptive. You see, that contraceptive means that she's not conceived. But when you have the 23 chromosomes that are contributed from the man, fertilizing the egg in the woman, which also has 23 chromosomes, what you get from that fertilization of that egg in the woman is a new life, 46 chromosomes, DNA pattern unique, not the mother's, not the father's, a combination of the two things, very unique, a new human life, a new person. And that's important, I think, in the whole conversation about contraception and birth control and all of that. Because at that point, the biblical mandate to respect human life comes into play. At that point, you have a new human life. People say it's the woman's body. No, it's not. It's not your body anymore. Once your egg has been fertilized by a man's contribution, now it's not your body anymore. Now it's the body of a new human being inside you. Any method that would prevent conception from ever happening, that would prevent the contribution from the man fertilizing the egg of the woman, any method that would prevent that from happening, I can think of no biblical principle that would condemn that. Again, birth control. Yeah, whether the mom gives birth to that little human inside her womb, that's another conversation altogether. It's a broader term. It would include methods that in fact do violate the principle of respecting human life. If that method of birth control destroys that little human that's in her womb, that's a problem. And we're not going to take the time to look at Psalm 139. We have done that many times from this pulpit, but you can read it, Psalm 139. God looks upon us even as we are formed in the womb. We're not going to look at Luke chapter 1 or Luke chapter 2, but in both of those chapters, you'll see the word brephos being used to describe the baby in the womb and the baby out of the womb. The Holy Spirit using the same terms. We're not going to spend time on all of that. Again, that's really not the question that's before us. Some people ask about the morning after pill. You may have heard of that, the morning after pill. They say, well, that's really not ending the life of a zygote, of one that has been, the egg that has been fertilized. And the answer is, well, yeah, it's true 90% of the time. 90% of the time, the morning after pill will prevent the fertilization of the woman's egg. But then you have the other 10% of the time, and that becomes problematic. 10% of the time, approximately, even the morning after pill does not prevent the fertilization of the egg, the beginning of a new human life. And so it becomes problematic. And I would say also in this conversation that motives matter a great deal. I mean, why are you wanting to take a contraceptive? or birth control? Is it because you're having premarital sex and you don't want to get pregnant? That's a problem. That's a problem. You might remember Onan, the rather sordid story in Genesis chapter 38. It involves something called levirate marriage, where when a guy's brother dies and he's married and he doesn't have any children, it is the other guy's, the living brother's responsibility to have sexual relationships with his dead brother's wife so that she can have children. Now, those children will not be considered his. They'll be considered the children of the dead brother, and they will be raised for his inheritance and all of that. And Onan didn't want to have anything to do with that. So he found his own crude way of practicing birth control. God didn't like it. But it's not because he was practicing birth control, it's because he had bad motives. He had a bad heart, a bad reason for practicing birth control. Today, I don't know, does a childless couple practice birth control because they just don't want to have kids and they want to practice a self-indulgent lifestyle and kids just going to get in the way of having fun? That could be a problem. I could see where that could be a problem. Or maybe a married couple practices birth control because they want to be responsible parents and they don't want to have children now because of financial issues, or maybe they don't want to have a whole lot of children because of financial issues. They want to be responsible and all of that. Again, that gets between the couple and God, and kind of like the voting thing. It's really none of my business, but I would encourage people to consider motives for practicing contraceptive methods. It's a good question.